expecting you so early. Good morning, and welcome to You Are Here. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about childhood horror trauma. Yay! What a great way to wake up, honestly. But I should probably get dressed so we could get this episode started, and so that you know what the hell's going on. All right. Just give me 1 minute. Almost went the wrong way. Hi guys, I'm Danny. Welcome to You Are Here. I'm very excited for you to be watching my first episode. Let's do a little story time. I was born in 1990. I am a 90s baby through and through. I grew up the youngest of 4 children. All my siblings are 10 to 14 years older than me. And so, yeah, I think that I have a good blend of 90s baby cartoons and a mixture of, whatever my teenage siblings were watching, like Beverly Hills 90210 and stuff like that. So yeah, that's my background. Although I was raised very lovingly, I also spent a lot of time by myself, and the TV was my babysitter, and I just grew up loving stories and film, and yeah. So that is why I have created this. I want to blend my childhood with my adulthood, with my passions, with whatever. I want to get that Saturday morning cartoon feeling back, so maybe you can help me find it. But yeah, this episode is about growing up being terrified of scary movies, and the main movie that really did it in for me when I was about 4 or 5 years old was It. Yes, I watched It when I was about 4 or 5 years old because my siblings had their friends over and they were watching it, and I was always with them. They were also my babysitters. So, yeah, traumatized. Completely. I was afraid to shower. I was afraid to go in a swimming pool. Anything water, drain related. I hated walking by, storm drains and all these things. I was terrified. I believed that all of that was real. Like, it just tormented me for so many years. I would even lay down and go to sleep and think that I was hearing it, or that it had taken over. I was always terrified that it was going to take over my mom, because my mom has always been like my shining light and my everything. So I was like, please don't turn my mom into it. That would traumatize me. So yeah, that is that. And just ever since, anytime I catch a glimpse of it from walking through Blockbuster and Hollywood Video as a kid, and that, infamous cover, to, running past that to new age streaming and seeing it as a suggestion, and, just his face right there. I'm like, I don't want to see that. I even had a coworker one time that had it tattooed on him, and I just had full access to saying that all the time. It's just like, ah. I watched the original one recently as an adult, and I was chill with it, except when they would cut to Tim Curry portraying it in all the memorable places that traumatized me. I'd be like, no, I don't want to watch it. Or I would look away. And it's just like, that's why. Or some things I just forgot and it clicked. I was like, oh, that's why I'm afraid of this and that and the other. But yeah, I also decided to watch a documentary based on the making of it and how it has just spanned all these years culturally in horror. And it was an amazing documentary. I love documentaries. But yeah, that is what I am going to tap into today. So let's get into it. Oops, hold on. Wrong dimension. Let's fix that. All right, so Pennywise, the story of it is a documentary directed by John Campapiano. Yeah, and it was also written by John C. And also Christopher Griffiths. So in this documentary, we are basically talking about the lore of it, and you have all the actors from the original miniseries on ABC talking about their experiences, and even Tim Curry himself. We have the original writers talking about how they transferred the novel into the miniseries, which I thought was really cool, that they showed a lot of the moving parts of making this film and involving the writers and everybody, producers, talking about everybody's name was put in there, and I love that. I loved the detail. So in this documentary, we start off from the very beginning talking about how the writers transferred this novel into a TV series, and I love all the quotes in this documentary. It speaks to what it's like to be a child, the fun and the scary parts, and it's so true. As much as the story of it terrifies me, it's also just very relatable in terms of being a kid and being afraid of something, and your fears just playing, or your trauma playing into your fears, and it just taps into all of that. And it's you could be having fun with your friends one minute, and then the next it's just oh no, did you hear that? I don't know. I really like that quote. But yeah, in terms of it being made for TV, kids had access to it. So I'm pretty sure that I'm not the only 90s baby that was traumatized by watching this at such a young age. We had access to it, aside from my siblings traumatizing me by allowing me to watch it. I would have saw it at some point. But yeah, Lawrence D. Cohen wrote the teleplay for part 1, and he also wrote Carrie. So I think based off of that, they were just going off of his success with that, which I think is awesome. Yeah, so basically to me, it seems like originally when they wrote out this miniseries that it was very similar to the current rendition of It, Welcome to Derry. They wanted this to be 8 hours long total. They wanted to get a full story out there, in parts, but that wasn't approved. And ABC was already nervous to see the results. They definitely weren't going to allow it to be more than a 2-parter. But George Romero originally was a part of the team and creating this miniseries. He was one of the people that wanted it to be 8 hours long, but that got turned down, and I'm not entirely sure if he dropped out because of that or if he had other things going on also. Probably a mixture of the two. But writer and director Tommy Lee Wallace condensed the novel for part 2. So we had different writers for part 1 and part 2, and Tommy himself says that he feels like the second part, which he condensed, strayed from the novel. And Wallace didn't realize that, like, having not read the novel, he just regrets how part 2 turned out, like, a lot. He loved the work that the part 1 writer did. I think it's great either way, honestly. It works, but I've also never read the novel, so what do I know? But yeah, I love how in both adaptations of it, being, you know, the miniseries versus the newer installments with chapter 1 and chapter 2, I like how in both adaptations there was deep care into the adults resembling their kid counterparts. Because I don't know, I'm just big on that in general. I don't like when the grown-up version of, you know, a kid in the movie just looks completely off and, you know, the character just isn't there. You know, it kind of reminds me of, what's that one movie, I think with Jason, what's his name? Anyways, there's a movie that he's in, you'll see, I'll add whatever, but the young version of him is just ridiculous. Like, there's no way in hell it's the same person. Anyways, John Ritter helped uplift everyone with humor between jokes. I loved that little tidbit, just because I'm a John Ritter fan. I'm also a fan of his son. Tim Curry insisted on not having too many prosthetics. He wanted to act with his own facial features. He knew that he would scare the audience, and he was 100% correct. He is the reason why I'm terrified of it. His facial features made it terrifying. Like, looking at all the things that they were trying to do with his appearance was awful. Kind of similar to how I feel about the appearance of Pennywise in the newer installments. I wasn't scared at any point in the newer installments because of how he looked. It just looked too playful and ridiculous to me. But that's not to take away from Bill Skarsgård, because he's an amazing actor and he did an incredible job playing Pennywise. But yeah, I'm glad that they listened to Tim and, you know, they just compromised on making his head kind of like a bulbous type thing. But yeah, I'm glad, because all the other stuff is ridiculous, and that man is a phenomenal actor. He is a cult classic icon in so many ways, and yeah, I'm glad he had that confidence in knowing that he could make this scary based on his own accord. Tim kept his distance from the kids on set, but if they walked by him while he was in costume, he would growl at them just to, like, keep up the the scary morale. Side note, my biggest takeaway of facts from watching this is that Tim Curry himself has a fear of clowns and insisted on no reflective surfaces while makeup was being applied. So I'm just like, dude, the man that terrified me portraying a demented clown is also afraid of clowns. This man was, like, facing his own fears, which it kind of feels like a full circle type of fact because of just what
just because of what's involved in the story itself, and the kids having full circle moments and facing their fears. But yeah, so I watched it, Welcome to Derry, and I am loving it. I already watched the first episode, and I just am fresh off of watching the second episode. I loved the intro, for one. And yeah, they're doing a phenomenal job with it. And I recently did a podcast episode talking about how I feel that all these franchises that people tend, or more specifically, all of these horror franchises that people tend to beat to death, should be portrayed just like this as a TV series. That you can keep up the lore of these stories, like, Michael Myers or Freddy, what have you, and put them in a TV series. Make a different cast each season. It's like, stop making these cheesy, awful movies and making us watch them. Like, it's just ridiculous. It's pointless. Turn them into a series. Especially, like, with this is a great prime example of what that could be if everybody would just go into that direction. This is brilliantly made. The screenwriting is just amazing, and the visual effects, it feels like watching the movie. It feels like watching like chapter 1 and chapter 2. It has the same cadence but a little more serious, which I like, because I felt like chapter 1 and chapter 2 were a little too silly in some instances, and I wasn't a fan of some of the graphics and that. I'm not 100% a fan of all the graphics that have been used so far in the series, but I don't know. I love it, and I can't wait to see how this season ends, but I'm digging it. I love the cast. It's brilliant acting. The kid actors are great, and I like how they kept the kid actors actually looking like kids, the age that they should be within this context, at least within the original context. Like, if you watch the original miniseries, you see that they actually look like kids, and Beverly, which is my biggest thing with that, actually looks like a little girl and looks her age, whereas in it chapter 1 and chapter 2, Beverly, they play on the sexualization. Like, that actress, she is an amazing actress. I can't think of her name right now, but they played off of her looks and just, I think, did too much with that, considering the rest of the kids in that cast don't equate to how Beverly looks in those films. But I don't know, maybe I'm reaching too far with that. But yeah, I have enjoyed my own full circle moment of all of this, and just getting past fears and enjoying horror movies and TV series. Like, the first TV series that broke me was Haunting of Hill House, and before that I was terrified of watching scary things, and that TV series broke me, and I've rewatched it like 4 or 5 times because the story is amazing, and it's very similar to how I'm starting to feel about Welcome to Derry. I think that it's great, and I'm gonna love to see it continue, and I hope that other franchises or other horror franchises kind of piggyback off of it and continue this motion of things and whatnot, because I think we need to make more room in movies and media for original work and stop rehashing the same old stuff with the same old actors. We need new. Hollywood needs to be rebuilt. and I promote that heavily, and I am going to be a part of that. But yeah, let's get back to another dimension. Hold on.